Hello again, and welcome to Winning with the Wrangler at Dick Powell's Leadership Corner, brought to you by Earth, Wind, Fire, Water Training and Development, where our passion is building leaders of today and tomorrow. The information on today's program was gathered from many different places and many different people. So if you hear yourself in it, well, it's not all about you. For speaking appearances and support, no problem. Give us a call, 727-422-1833, or send me an email, dick@ewfw.org. I'd like to welcome Miss Robin with us today. Robin, how you doing?
I'm terrific.
I understand our topic today is just a little bit different than we normally talk about here on Leadership Wrangler, but the topic is, am I invisible?
Well, yeah, let's qualify that. It's something a leader needs to keep in mind. Do you have people sitting at your table that feel invisible? We've had instances, and they kind of come in groups, the invisibility thing, like when you're standing in line at a store and no one seems to see you, or you're sitting in a restaurant and no one seems to recognize that there's people at the booth that are waiting for dinner. They like to order.
Uh-huh.
And then there's the invisibility on the road in your car, which can be very, very, very dangerous.
That's kind of scary.
And you have to wonder, because we don't drive gray cars anymore because we felt like they must blend in with the road. We drive cars with color, or in your case, white. But anyway, the things are invisible. Think about when you were in school as a child. Invisibility was good. Maybe
sometimes
because you weren't getting in trouble for things that you may or may not have been doing or whatever. But for the most part, we need to pay attention to the people around us and acknowledge that they're there and they're part of the situation, whatever it is. Especially if you're a leader. Like I said, if you're the leader of a group with a board meeting or something like that, you need to make sure everyone gets recognized and can be included in part of this. And for instance, naturally something happened. And I'm in charge of this meeting, and there's it seems like the group is shrinking, and I'm not because we're getting rid of positions that we can't fill and aren't really necessarily ongoing, which is another whole problem. Trust me, because pretty much if you can't fill those positions and things aren't being addressed, the group is going to dwindle and die anyway. And we are knowing this. But there's a woman there who finally at the end, and she was sitting, there was one empty chair between she and I, and she really had nothing to say through the whole meeting, and it went a little longer than usual. And I said something to her at the end, and she said, well, actually, I left my hearing aids at home. So not only was she invisible, you can see her, but she couldn't hear us. So maybe we were invisible too. I don't know. But keep those things in mind. And maybe I should acknowledge that at the beginning of the meeting instead of the end, and I will try to do better in the future.
Okay. So, am I invisible? Well, what a loss when people nearest you don't see you, hear you, pay attention to you. They say you cannot be a prophet in your own backyard and have to have a meaning and relevance. You need to come within 100 miles away. How silly is that?
That's ridiculous.
Can anyone really have more thoughts, ideas, and impact on you just because of the distance?
I would argue that point to my grave.
It makes it really funny that there are certain organizations that you're involved in, and someone from some other state comes in, and all of a sudden they're like come right on in, give us all your information and ideas. And when you've been sitting there all your whole time and you've been doing the same thing, but
you may have been saying the same thing.
Actually. So what Robin and I are really doing here is we're saying take the time today to see.
To really look.
To really see those around you and what they have to offer. Now, a lot of times this means when you're a leader in a group, there's those quiet people who have a lot to offer.
Oh, man.
But for some reason, they're not really comfortable about speaking up. Now, that could be that the leader before you or something else had put them down so many times that they just were done. They were tired of speaking up and being smacked down.
Right.
That could be the situation.
Well, and I have a friend, long time friend. We've been involved in many organizations, and in some she's had a lot of credibility, and other ones not so much. but for some reason, I haven't figured out why yet, because I don't view people this way. But when people meet her, they think she's like not altogether up here. Like she's just not real bright. And on the other hand, she's very bright. She's very profound, and she's awesomely intuitive about things. And she's one of the people I call when I need to know: did I misbehave? Did I overstep? Did I understand? Should I have been invisible at the time when I was trying to be heard and seen and listened to and acknowledged? She's one of the people I would call. But again, I don't really understand why all of a sudden, when new people come on, they just look at her like she's not very bright at all. Like I said, that's not true.
So here's the situation we're talking about: is that you will be amazed at the knowledge and experiences and the ability that other people have,
right,
if you give them half an opportunity to express it. But again, not everyone has that ability to stand up and say that right off the bat.
Well, that's smart too sometimes.
Well, being understandable is a big piece of this, but you need to be understandable in a meaningful way.
And you need to keep, when you're talking, and this is difficult for us, as you can tell, as we ramble on in the show, that you keep your statements and your comments and your input clear and concise, and you do not keep saying the same thing over and over again. That's called beating a dead horse. And believe me, after you've said it twice, nobody is listening. Whether it's good or not, they've already heard it. They either have accepted it and assimilated it, or are incapable of doing that. So you're becoming not necessarily invisible, but a drone. So,
and that really depends on what you're doing. If it's the vision and mission, that needs to be repeated all the time.
That does.
Okay,
but if you're telling the story, don't tell the same thing.
Yeah, don't tell the same story. You can change the people in it; it'd be okay. Okay, but we seem to be always looking for answers. That's all of us.
I always have the question.
From those around us, when we come into our circle from somewhere else, and that person sitting right next to us could say the exact same thing, but we give more credibility to that person who is new and coming into it.
And sometimes it's because maybe they changed 2 words. And their words have a better connection with who they're talking to than your words.
And sometimes you've been there for so long that you're just, hey, that's Robin and Dick.
That's them again. And I will tell you, there are times when I have said things to people in a meeting or on a phone conversation or something about an organization, and suddenly I'll hear that my exact words, or pretty darn close to them, coming back to me from someone else. I'll say, "Did you da 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 da?" And I'll just look like, and I don't know if they know it came from me or not. I just go and I say, "Really? Isn't that interesting? I think I could agree with that." You don't have to tell them I said it first. Just be quiet and accept the fact that they're talking about what you said and they're giving it credibility.
This whole thing of not being seen and being invisible, it happens to everyone. I can tell you that the number one reason that some churches are not doing well is because people walk through the front door and they're invisible to the people who are already there. Yes. We've learned the same thing in other businesses. We were in a large organization, and we were looking for a new computer. And we walked in. There were 6 salesmen standing around talking to themselves and each other.
Oh, I remember this.
And there was a lot of people around, but they were more involved with each other than they were anybody else. And we were just invisible. All of a sudden, they went off and started talking to other clients. And we were still standing there, and they kept looking at us with these weird eyes, but didn't come over and talk to us. We were invisible.
And so we walked out the door.
We did not buy from that organization.
And I'm not sure we've been back in the store.
We have not. And I probably will not go back in that opportunity.
There was that statement about people don't remember what you were wearing or what you had to eat or anything like that, but they're going to remember how you made them feel.
Yeah.
So do not ever let someone leave feeling like they were invisible.
And that's the point, is you have to be intentional about this. If you're not intentional about making sure you're including others in your world, in your opportunity, in your conversation, if you're a leader, you need to be intentional about it.
Right. And it might need to be part of your leadership training as you're replacing your leaderships on their term cycles and things like that, that you talk about making sure that everyone that comes to that meeting that's a new leadership feels involved and included, and like a visible, viable person, not like a shut mouth in a chair.
one of the biggest things that we're seeing, we're oftentimes brought into organizations and we're asked, how come our organization isn't growing and moving, and what seems to be opportunity? Quite frankly, when those organizations are churches, what we find over and over that it's very hard to find pastors who are good at many different things, and one of them is being relational to the people. And this thing of being,
they're always the pastor,
being ignored or being invisible really will tend to stop that right there. But this instruction thing that Miss Robin is talking about is highly important. We as leaders have a basic job, and that's to build more leaders.
Right.
And leaders need to be intentional about building rapport as well as relationships with everyone within their reach. Now,
remember, as a leader, part of your functionality might be to have someone ready to replace you.
That's actually,
you can't keep that position very long and be effective.
Actually, that's your job, is to work yourself out of a job.
Right.
But you can't do that if you don't take the time to be intentional about building that relationship with someone else and all the other people around you.
And the growth.
This is super important to make sure that you happen. Now, when you ignore people, even unintentionally, here's what happens. They go and tell a story. And that story gets told over and over and over. And the terrible part about it is that story gets told to one person who tells another person, who tells another person, who tells another person. All of a sudden, it really becomes the truth of the organization.
And the story changes. Every time it's told, it's not told the same way.
We belong,
and it changes.
We belong to a large organization.
Whether it's true or not.
That's called the Frozen Chosen, which I hate. I truly dislike it greatly.
I don't hear that much anymore.
And the reason for that is because you are what you say you are. You become who you say you are.
Right.
It just goes in the grain. So as you're out and about, if you're a leader in your group, make sure you're intentional about it. Let me tell you a good story. When I was the director of an educational opportunity at a large organization, the person that I worked for and reported to was always kind of disgruntled with me because I was usually never in my chair in my office. You see, I felt it was so important to meet everybody at the front door every single morning and then welcome them in and make sure they got the right class and make sure they got the right place. And if not, I'd walk them to that location. I would talk to them. I felt that it was so important that I was that first person they were going to meet in this organization. I was going to be the one who set the tone for their whole career. Yeah. That's how I truly believed. The gentleman I worked for, on the other hand, thought it was more important to take and be on those phone calls all day long. Well, what I found out was the people that I had interacted with years afterwards, and now that I've been retired for a long time, when I run into them at the grocery store or I run into them at some other place, it amazes me, what do they remember? They remember very little about what I taught them or what we did, but they always remember that first encounter at the front door. And that's what we're talking about here.
And that goes so far. Like I said, they remember the way you made them feel.
So setting that tone.
Angelou.
It is mine.
Okay, yeah. I was saying, well, give some credit here. It was a very profound theologian.
The whole thing that we're trying to go over and over is the invisibility in the prophet and the non-prophet, the religious, even in our homes.
Remember, it's your business, your opportunities, your friends and family.
How many times have you walked into the front door, you've been so preoccupied about either what happened at work or preoccupied at the drive home that you kind of ignored everyone as you walk through?
How many times have you been, we just had holidays. Mm-hmm. How many times over the years have you walked into a family, the extended family, all the brothers-in-laws and sisters-in-laws and grandmothers and great-grandmothers and nieces and nephews, and really sat in a corner by yourself because nobody wants to talk to you? It's an invisible time, and that's something that you need to be aware of in your family. Take time when they're at your house, especially if they're at your house. Because somebody else's house is not necessarily your job, but your house, to make them feel welcome and exchange a few words, even if it's only, hey, great to see you, what you been up to, that's very important. it's very important to have those kinds of conversations in any opportunity, business, friends, or fellowship, church, whatever, to get to know the people
One of the things I'm really
on
trying
a
to
personal level.
encourage us all to do as leaders is to make sure we're reaching out.
Mm-hmm.
We're always being intentional about where we're at and what we're doing, the words we're using, how we're being seen. Now, sometimes that intentionality could be just a hi or a wave across the aisle or
Right.
something else, but it's an actual connection that says, hey, I see you.
Right.
I value you coming here. I
Mhm.
value you being here.
It's nice to see you.
It's that value that you're being placed on.
And also remember that if you see someone that you didn't have time to spend saying, gosh, it's really good to see you. I haven't seen you for a while. To make a point to say, I haven't seen you for a while. Why don't we step over in a corner and get me caught up on what's going on in your life? Or send them an email or text them or call them on the phone and say, it was so nice to see you at such and such a day. I didn't see you in time to actually have a conversation. How are you?
Now, here's what will happen when you get really good at this. What will happen is if you miss someone, they'll come and see you. Yeah. It is amazing to me when I start down on Sunday mornings and I start down at the front of the church and I start walking up and I see everybody and shake hands and give hugs and all those kind of things, that if I miss someone who I came in while I was doing it, kind of slip past me, they'll come to me and say, hey, you missed me.
The passing of peace, Tyler. You dropping to God a few for a hug. Yeah. It's a good thing, and we hope at that same time that they're getting more inclined to do the same where they go, to talk to everybody, to speak, to say hello, to be intentional about being friendly.
People do what people see.
Doesn't cost you anything.
And people repeat what people hear.
That's right.
And the most important part of this thing is taking this invisibility out. You're going to sometimes see people who maybe you're not real comfortable with. Maybe they're different. Maybe they look different, like you. Talk different. Maybe you've had a situation in the past where they have put forth that they didn't care for you. That really doesn't matter. It matters that you make them feel valued.
Right.
And if it is the whole value is nothing more than a hi, how are you doing? We'll follow it up with something with some meat to it that really makes a difference. You see, if you've been intentional, you could oftentimes say, well, how is your son? How's he doing? Yeah. How is your daughter? Well, I understand that you bought a new dog. It could be any of those things that shows that you value the time enough to take interest, to have interest in them.
Yeah, you want to take some personal interest.
And that's always fun for me. I take little notes a lot of times on my cards with when I meet people, because I remember faces and I'm not real good with names.
And that's a really, really good idea, especially if it's not someone you see very often.
Right.
I'm involved in organizations where I see people once every 3 years if I'm lucky.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have to remember their name if they don't have a name badge on. Hard.
Boy, name badges are good.
Name badges are awesome, especially if you can actually read the name on them. But and then remember where you know them from and maybe what's happened in between. I know I ran into a lady last summer that I hadn't seen for 3 years. And I knew she had moved somewhere in the past 4 or 5 years. She had moved, and I wish I'd thought to ask her when I saw her. I'm hugging her in the hall, and she was hugging me back, so it was okay. That I wish I'd asked her where she was actually living now, because I don't think I know that.
Staying in touch.
But it's nice to keep that touch going. And thank you so much when I get Facebook posts from people I met 5 or 6 or 8 years ago, and it's like, wow, the sisterhood is engaged. We are still touching, and you read her thing or comment like or whatever, and you find other people that you from the same experience, the same opportunity you're on, are doing. It's wonderful. It's just so like I said, it's the sisterhood.
So why do you think? I'm going to ask Robin this. Okay, why do you think people sometimes intentionally really make you invisible?
If it's people I know, it's because I think they don't want me to get started on something. And there's people that I know that treat me that way, that I know I got the body language and the vibes that they really don't want anything to do with me. I really do try to stay off their radar. It's just not worth my upset. And that's a true thing. There's people that you meet and you think, whoa, they really don't like me. I need to kind of stay away.
Now, see,
And you need to.
I'm on the other side.
You want to
If
antagonize
I get
you
that
and
other
find out
vibe,
why.
I'm going to go over and say, hey, I don't understand why you don't like me.
To,
I'm a lovable guy.
I'm the person that if I have to say hello to somebody who I know doesn't like me, and I don't want to get anything, any nasty. I don't want to get physically looked down to and ignored because they don't even want to talk to me. I will say, hey, how you doing, and keep walking. That's my out. Mm-hmm. And whether that's right or wrong, I don't know.
Well,
so far it's working for me.
So far, really, you have acknowledged them.
I've acknowledged them. I have not.
And the value there is this. Mm-hmm. I acknowledge you, even though I might not like you, you might not mm-hmm. like me. I'm acknowledging your presence. Mm-hmm. And that in itself is a positive, by the way.
It is. And sometimes as things go forward from that point, because you acknowledge them and you didn't really have to, maybe, you might find yourself encountering them at a time where they'll say something like, I really didn't like you very much when I met you, but you're really a neat person, because someone else gave bad vibes and bad comments before they met you. And that's unfortunate.
Yeah.
It does happen.
Here again, this intentionality that we're talking about, it needs to happen at the grocery store, mm-hmm. when you're going out to eat, when you're standing in line.
You can be nice.
It doesn't matter where. You can stand in line and say something nice to someone. Mm-hmm.
You can just smile and
just
say,
smile.
Can you believe we picked the wrong checkout line again?
Yeah, that was kind of funny today, actually.
That was funny. That was
kind of funny. But,
it happens a lot.
It's the whole piece. Mm-hmm. It's the whole piece.
But I think I find, because I am more of I know it doesn't come out, but I am more of an introvert than an extrovert in those kind of situations. Dick is in your face.
I'm very introverted.
So we work very well together. But I do know that when I take a moment and smile and speak to the person behind me or in line or something, that I get the impression that they've been treated invisibly. They're very glad that someone acknowledged the fact that they can see them. So take that in mind also. If they don't want to talk to you, they'll make that known.
I think all of us like to have the opportunity to be recognized.
Right.
That I'm being seen. Mm-hmm. That I'm a real person.
Really here.
And I'm really there. I think all of us look for that connection with other people. Whether we want to admit it, whether we're introverts or extroverts, I believe in my heart that we all are looking for that connection with someone else and with other people. Mm-hmm. So as we walk through life, I think it's something we need to be intentional about, and that is recognizing those people. Now, the other day I was recognized by a driver who almost ran me off the road, and he saluted me. He saluted me very nicely. And I probably could have gotten really angry about that. But I came to realize that it was a person who just did not see that big white van, and he pulled out in front of me. Now, I could have gotten terribly nasty about it, but here again, what would that have accomplished?
Nothing.
So be intentional about being intentional about who you're contacting. But again, I caution you at the thing is people repeat what people see. And I've seen it over and over when I smile at someone in the checkout line or I take and hold the door open for someone, that I see them later do the same thing for the next person. How important is that we pass that opportunity on to be seen and heard?
And a lot of this is just courtesy.
Well,
and I don't know where we teach that, where we learn that. I don't know, but I know that courtesy we're losing it fast, especially on the road.
Civility is something that goes along with this whole thing of being invisible.
Yeah.
This thing of acting in a certain way and then pretending no one saw you do it. Is a whole different ballgame.
We've all done that.
The thing is, one time I did that and I fell from the top of that pole. But I jumped up really quick and looked around to make sure no one saw me. Then I went to the hospital.
That's probably the dumbest thing to do is jump up. But yeah.
Then I went to the hospital.
Just saying.
But, a wise man once told me, if you're not being seen and heard, you're not being seen and heard.
Correct.
Then he went on to say, he says, if you do not listen, you will miss what is heard and you won't see what is right in front of you. Okay. The thing about that is this. I have met some really interesting people along the line. Many of those have been able to help me in my career and in my thought process. People who we've had discussions with about crazy things at really crazy times. The opportunity was there. I had an opportunity to make a choice. I could have remained silent and just stood there or sat there and never said a word and missed out on such a lively conversation to learn something new. What I would have lost in that opportunity. I've lost things when I've sat down next to someone in the hospital or when I was getting my injections every week who was in some kind of way a lot worse off than I was, who just needed someone to listen to them and be recognized that they were more than a number. They were more than someone just sitting in the next chair with an IV in their arm. You know, that's important, that we recognize and value the other person. How important is it that we go through life without ever recognizing those around us? Whether it's in our family or it's in our organization, it's at our church, no matter where it's at, recognizing that other people have a lot to give and a lot to share. And if we don't take advantage of that, it's our loss. So we're encouraging you here. If you're feeling invisible, maybe you need to say the first word. Or if you see someone who is being treated invisibly, maybe you need to start something. If you're a leader and you're in a large meeting and you notice someone just kind of sitting by the side, but it seems like they want to say something, want to engage, but no one really lets them because everyone's talking over top of them. Yeah. Stop the conversation and ask the question, what is it you want to say? We will all be quiet and listen. And as a leader, I've had to do that more than once. And it seems I'm having to do it more than more when we're in organizations nowadays. This thing of talking over one person over top of the other because you want to get your idea out there before they do is really not.
Well, sometimes that's important.
It's not respectful.
But it's not respectful. And again, encourage people to always be clear and concise. I mean, say what you need to say, but don't oversay it. Don't say it 5 or 6 times to the same group. And try to keep it concise. And
leaders, this is something you can instruct.
You're getting into people's attention spans. And again, if they've heard it before, yeah.
Leaders have an opportunity in today's world to really do some instruction that really will help us all. Mm-hmm. Clear and concise information giving and receiving is something that starts from that leader. If they see the leader stand up there and palaver for half an hour over nothing, right, and give nothing with it, well, you know what? They seem to think that that's what they need to do because people do what people see and people repeat what people hear.
Yes.
So, oh boy, be concise, be ready, but it's be hard. Intentional.
It's hard.
If nothing else. Mm-hmm. Robin, how would you like to wrap this up tonight?
Do you have a final thought?
The final thought, I think I already did it. So, here it is. Pay attention and be aware to all those around you. You might learn important thoughts, ideas, and solutions for your life and others.
Very good.
You know, it's been a lot of fun to take and share with you today about being invisible. On behalf of myself, Dick Powell, and Robin Powell, we want to say thank you for being a part of today's program. Our hope is that you've received a nugget of wisdom and guidance that will help you build your leadership ability. Now, if you have any questions or comments, don't hesitate. Give us a phone call, 727-422-1833, 727-422-1833, or give me an email, dick@ewfw.org, and we'll get back to you just as fast as we can. When you're ready to take your leadership learning to another level, let us know because we have programs just waiting in the wings to be taught to you. The first one, of course, is how not to lose your bass in business. This is a way to have entrepreneurial guide and spirit of building a company, maintaining a company, and of course, making money with the company. Some of the other courses we offer are Sword of Success with Coaching Skills, and this is 52 tips on how to empower yourself and others within your organization. Now, when you know that you're ready to take and have Miss Robin or myself come and give your team an opportunity of leadership and opportunity, Give us a phone call, 727-422-1833. Send us an email, dick@ewfw.org. And until next time, this is Dick Powell and Robin Powell saying, ride hard, ride fast.